Think for a second about a really famous building, one you've seen pictures of, like a million times.
You're right. Something iconic.
Exactly. But how well do you actually know it? I mean, have you ever truly stopped to consider its story, the ideas it represents?
It's a good question.
Okay, so that's the kind of mental deep dive we're doing today, all thanks to Michael Arturo's novel, Flatiron.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating here is how Arturo takes this, very real, very solid structure, the Flatiron building,
Hmm.
and uses it almost as a jumping off point to explore some pretty elusive stuff. Memory, perception.
That line between what's real and what's not.
Exactly. Reality and illusion, it gets blurry.
Right. So if you've ever sort of pondered the way your own memories maybe color your understanding, or, how art can challenge how you see things,
Then this is definitely for you.
you're in the right place. We've got Arturo's novel itself, plus some really insightful analysis to help us guide the conversation.
And we're going to try and unpack the key ideas, right? The big questions Arturo raises through this story.
Especially through this character, Jerry Greenberg, an artist with this obsession.
With the Flatiron.
Yeah.
Just the Flatiron.
Yeah. So the core of the novel, it kind of drops us right into this. Well, it's a pretty disorienting scene, isn't it?
It really is. You're seeing it through the narrator's eyes, right?
Yeah.
Reconnecting with someone from his past. Finding himself in this artist, Jerry Greenberg's loft.
Sure.
And it's chaotic.
Intense. You mentioned intense. And Greenberg's entire focus, his whole artistic world, it just orbits this one building.
Like the Flatiron, yeah. And it's not just scenery.
No, definitely not. It's like a character itself.
Mm-hmm.
And the book immediately starts messing with your sense of certainty.
Mm-hmm. You start to question right alongside the narrator. Okay, where does the hard truth end and where does, subjective interpretation take over?
Yes, this constant back and forth, what we remember, what we think we see, and what might actually be real.
And if we sort of zoom out a bit, look at where this fits in literature, Arturo's definitely talking to some major figures.
Oh, yeah. Like who?
Well, the analysis we looked at brings up Jorge Luis Borges, for one.
Borges. Okay, that makes sense. Master of those twisty, self-referential stories.
Exactly. And the analysis points out how Arturo echoes that. There's even a concierge named Mr. Borges, a little nod.
Yeah, okay. A bit on the nose, maybe?
Maybe a bit, but it flags that Borgesian obsession with memory, identity, how reality can feel like it's folding in on itself.
Yeah.
Metafiction,
Right, where the story knows it's a story. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is the narrator's whole experience in that lost? Just another one of those nested realities Borges loved.
That's the question it raises, totally. And then you've got Samuel Beckett. There's a real echo of Beckett there, too.
Beckett, how so? In the dialogue?
Yeah, absolutely. And those conversations between the narrator and Greenberg, they can feel a bit aimless, but charged at the same time.
Like they're circling something important, but can't quite grasp it.
Precisely. There are arguments about, how many sides the Flatiron has, or if it even properly exists. It has that Waiting for Godot vibe.
Mm-hmm. That existential confusion.
Yeah.
Grappling with these huge, maybe unanswerable questions in this confined space.
It's like they're stuck in this loop, talking around this building that becomes a symbol for, everything they can't pin down.
And the analysis connects it to Italo Calvino as well, thinking of invisible cities.
Right, where cities aren't just places. They're metaphors for thought, emotion, memory.
Okay, so the Flatiron becomes like one of Calvino's cities. A vessel for stories and feelings.
Kind of, yeah. It's the central point where everyone projects their own stuff onto it. Their meanings, their histories.
Speaking of projection, Paul Auster comes up too. New York trilogy.
Mm-hmm. That same kind of Noirish searching for identity feel within the city.
Like the city itself is a puzzle, a mystery to solve.
Yeah, and the narrator's journey, his interactions with Greenberg, it has that quality of a metaphysical quest. The clues are there, maybe, but the answers are slippery.
And identity itself feels unstable, like it could dissolve.
Exactly, which links into another influence the analysis mentions, the nouveau roman. Writers like Rob Grillet or Nathalie Serrault.
Ah, the French New Novel. Okay, how does that connect? The focus on objects.
Yeah, that intense focus on objects.
Yeah.
The paintings, the building, even the intercom in the apartment.
Yeah.
And how our unreliable memories shape how we perceive these solid things.
It's like when your inner world of memory is shaky, you latch on to the physical details.
Sort of. It's about exploring consciousness through that detailed description. And there's even a nod to a more contemporary writer, Tom McCarthy.
Remainder.
Yeah. That shared obsession with repetition, authenticity.
Yeah.
trying to recreate memories perfectly.
Which feels a bit like the narrator trying to piece together his past with Alex and Greenberg, right?
Absolutely. All these literary threads kind of weave together around this one powerful symbol, the Flatiron Building.
Which, as we've said, is way more than just steel and stone in this book.
Oh, much more. It's an active presence. It's real, but it's also deeply imagined.
And Greenberg's whole artistic life, this laser focus on the Flatiron, it's like an anchor for his own existential angst, isn't it?
Completely. He's not just painting architecture. He's wrestling with these huge uncertainties about reality itself.
And that's where pataphysics comes in. The book actually uses that term.
It does. To describe Greenberg's thinking, this idea that the Flatiron might not even be real, or maybe it exists as some kind of perfect Platonic idea.
Wow. Pataphysics, the science of imaginary solutions.
Yeah.
That's quite a concept to apply to a landmark.
It is. It really throws the door wide open, makes you question the very ground you stand on, metaphorically speaking.
And all the talk about perspective, literally, where you stand to look at it, but also philosophically, it just keeps reinforcing the Flatiron as this shifting symbol, a cipher.
Right. And notice how they approach it differently. Greenberg paints it like he's trying to nail down its reality.
While the narrator walks around it, trying to find some objective truth on the ground.
Yeah, but in the end, the analysis suggests they both end up circling back to their own subjective viewpoints, their own memories.
Which brings us right to those core themes.
Yes.
Memory and subjectivity are just huge here.
Definitely. The whole story feels like it's floating in this space between remembering now and a past that's hazy, unreliable maybe.
And the analysis points out a really clever twist, or potential twist.
The identity thing.
Yeah, the possibility that the narrator is actually Alex Alessi.
Which just turns everything on its head, right? It completely destabilizes who's telling the story.
It reinforces that whole cyclical idea of memory and identity. Who are we, really? Are we just echoes of the past?
Makes you reread everything thinking, wait, whose perspective is this? How much is being filtered?
Exactly. And then there's the whole theme of art itself. Is it illusion? Is it revelation? Both?
Greenberg's obsessive painting, and maybe Arturo's writing too.
Yeah.
It feels like this attempt to make sense of things that don't always make sense.
His focus isn't really architectural, is it? It's metaphysical.
Absolutely. And the novel seems to say, yeah, art can give you glimpses, insights, but it can also hide things, obscure the truth.
It's like creating something is both trying to capture reality and admitting you might just be adding another layer of illusion.
Mm-hmm. And then there's that incredible weaving of real history with personal myth.
The Flatiron's construction and the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire.
Uh-huh.
How did they get tangled up?
Through this generational family story connected to Alex Alessi, it suggests how big historical traumas and individual identity get encoded in the stories families tell.
Wow. So fiction becomes a way to process history, or maybe reshape it.
Could be both. It shows how easily fact and, well, family legend can merge over time, especially with traumatic events.
And this definitely taps into that broader sense of, I don't know, urban absurdity.
Yeah.
The modern condition.
Yeah, the analysis connects it to writers like DeLillo or Pynchon.
Right. White noise, crying of Lot 49. That feeling of the city as this overwhelming, maybe nonsensical labyrinth.
Exactly. It mirrors that postmodern fragmentation of identity being lost in simulations. The Flatiron becomes another piece of that maze, solid, yet somehow unreal.
And Arturo's writing style really pulls this all together.
Yeah.
How would you describe it?
The analysis calls it a blend of literary and surreal. The dialogue is key. It's philosophical, deep, but also has this sharp, almost sardonic edge.
And the structure isn't straightforward, is it? It loops back.
No, it's recursive. Memory is unreliable, so the narrative reflects that. It creates this hypnotic, almost dreamlike feeling. Time and identity start to blur.
You mentioned the Beckett quality in the dialogue earlier. Terse, but loaded.
Yeah. Simple words carrying heavy existential weight. Keeps you guessing about what's not being said.
It definitely makes you feel a bit lost, mirroring the narrator's own confusion. The analysis notes the philosophical bits can feel dense sometimes.
Right, but suggests maybe that's the point, like being led into a hall of mirrors deliberately.
Okay, so why does this feel relevant now?
Well, think about our current climate, right? Disinformation, rewriting history, everyone searching for their own truth.
Yeah, the novel really hits on that. How much of our past is fact versus curated myth?
And it pushes you to question what you count as real memory, buildings, even yourself, especially when we're obsessed with authenticity but live in these very constructed realities.
Let's get more specific, though. Pulling from the novel itself. Greenberg's obsession. He wants to see the Flatiron for the first time every time.
Yeah, that's the idea, this constant attempt to strip away familiarity and perceive it fresh.
Which leads to that great debate with the narrator. Does it really exist? Or is it just an idea we agree on? The whole flatness thing is brilliant.
Right, how perspective totally changes its shape. It's such a perfect, concrete example of a philosophical point.
And that's where Greenberg brings in pataphysics again.
Yeah, the science of imaginary solutions. Embracing contradiction, looking beyond pure logic. It sums up his whole weird approach.
And then Alex Alessi pops up, this ghost from the narrator's past.
Right, the forgotten friend. His absence is the trigger for the whole story, really. Why the narrator goes back to Greenberg's loft.
And that leads to the family history. Alex's great-grandfather, the immigrant worker.
Who supposedly worked on the Flatiron construction. And somehow, in the family myth, that gets tangled up with the triangle shirtwaist fire.
Which is such a powerful example of how memory mixes things up.
Yeah.
Personal story absorbing historical tragedy.
Totally blurring the lines, and then Greenberg drops those nightmares he had.
Oh yeah, the trench collapse. Workers buried under the Flatiron.
Yeah, really disturbing stuff. Linked to this forgotten basement ballroom, New Year's Eve music. It hints at this hidden, maybe suppressed history beneath the building.
Gives the building a dark undercurrent.
Definitely. And then the narrator leaves and has that encounter with the concierge, Mr. Borges.
Who calls him Senor Alessi.
Bam! Total disorientation. Our identities merging. Who is who? It throws everything up in the air.
It's like the city itself is messing with him. And then he goes back to the loft.
Yeah.
Sees the Flatiron again.
And those final lines about perspective, about family history being intertwined, it loops back beautifully. Your viewpoint, your past, they shape everything.
Okay, let's just circle back quickly to pataphysics. Alfred Jarry's idea. It's like a playful critique of science.
Kind of. A parody of rational thought that loves contradictions, loves the absurd, and Greenberg really fits that mold.
How so? He's like a pataphysical practitioner.
You could say that. The analysis frames him as the inventor, creating his own Flatiron cosmology, the experimentalist, with endless paintings trying to find the truth.
And maybe a trickster.
The provocateur.
Yeah, maybe a bit of the delusional con man, too, constantly prodding you about reality without giving answers.
So his art isn't about copying the building.
Not at all. It's generating these imaginary solutions to those big questions. Existence, memory, perception. The paintings are almost placeholders for something ultimately unknowable.
And the real point isn't the painting itself, but what it reveals about our limits. Exactly. The analysis nails it. The art's inadequacy is the revelation. It forces you up against the limits of your own perception, the fragility of memory, the ambiguity of history.
So the Flatiron ends up being this ontological joke, an architectural pun on perspective.
Perfectly put. And Arturo uses Greenberg's obsession brilliantly to show the cracks in how we think we know the world.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what are the main things we're taking away from this deep dive into Flatiron?
Well, for me, it's definitely how powerfully the novel shows memory isn't just passive recall, it actively shapes our reality.
Right, and how art can grapple with those huge, maybe unanswerable questions, even if it doesn't give easy answers.
And how something as solid as a building can become this focal point for really deep philosophical digging.
Which leads to a final thought, maybe, for you listening.
Yeah, think about the familiar landmarks in your own life. A building, a park, whatever. What stories, maybe even imaginary solutions do you project onto them?
And what could those projections tell you about how you see truth and how your own memory works?
It's definitely something interesting to mull over.
For sure. So if this has grabbed you, we absolutely recommend checking out Michael Arturo's Flatiron.
And maybe dip into some of those other writers we mentioned, Borges, Beckett, Calvino, Auster. Explore pataphysics if you dare.
You might find your own perspective starts to shift in some pretty interesting ways.